All right, I think my clock says it's just about 11, and so I'll go ahead and call us to order. This is the first meeting of the Sheriff's Office Advisory and Review Board. And Crystal, if you would take roll for us.
Okay. Tommy Jewell.
Present.
Diane Layden.
Present.
Debbie Strongin.
Present.
Debbie Dodge.
Present.
Diane Dosal.
Here.
Michael Wismer.
Present.
Looks like everyone is here.
Okay, and it looks like we have several staff members. I saw Floyd, and obviously you're on, Crystal. Are there other staff members present as well? Is perhaps Daniel on? I know there was a question to Daniel, and I'm hoping he'll have an opportunity to report back to us on that.
So he actually declined the meeting right before it started. So I don't know if something popped up for him in his schedule.
Okay. At any rate, we'll move on to the consent agenda, for which there are 3 items, the first of which is approval of the December 10, 2021 meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I move to approve.
Second?
And I'll second. This is Michael.
Michael, did we get you on the roll call? Anyway,
Yes, you certainly did.
okay, good. All right, it's been moved and properly seconded that the minutes from the December 10, 2021 meeting be approved. Is there any objection? Hearing none, those minutes will stand approved. Item B is the vote on the SOARB chair, and C on the vice chair. And I don't know that our standing procedural rules provide for this, but I think I will step down from the chair and ask, and I think we do not have a vice chair at this particular time. So I'm going to ask if Mr. Wismer might handle an election for us.
You mean procedural wise?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, first of all, for the position of chair, the way I would like to do this is call for nominations. And then once all the nominations are in, we'll call for a second, and then we can have a discussion if anyone wants to discuss any of the positions, and then we can vote. Is that acceptable with everyone?
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay, the first position that would be open for annual appointment would be that of the chair. Is there a nomination for chair?
I'll nominate Debbie Strongin.
Okay, we have a nomination for Debbie Strongin as chair,
I'll second.
and that was seconded by the judge. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there, yes, Diane Layden, I see your hand up. Do you have a nomination?
I nominate Judge Jewell.
Judge Jewell?
And Debbie Strongin, and I second.
Okay, so we have 2 nominees, Debbie Strongin and Judge Jewell. So the way I would propose to do that, since we have 2 nominees, is a roll call vote after we have a discussion or hear comments from either of the candidates for chair. So Judge Jewell, do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
Well, I certainly encourage new leadership. I think Debbie has certainly done a good job for us in many respects. I don't know if she's so inclined or being pushed to the fore. I certainly don't mind doing it again, but certainly I've had my shot at leadership, and this organization can move forward. So that's my attitude, and I am glad to yield if that's the will of our board.
Debbie, you are also nominated. Debbie Strongin, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, I really appreciate the nomination and thank you for that. But I really think that Judge Jewell has done a superb job in the last year under very trying and confusing circumstances to get a cohesive group working together, all remotely. And so while I'm happy to serve in some capacity, I think that Judge Jewell should remain chair for this year.
Thank you, Debbie. Are there comments? Anyone else wish to make a comment at this time?
I did nominate Debbie Strongin, but I thought Judge Jewell was stepping down because he didn't want to serve again. I would be happy for him to stay on.
I see Diane Dosal has her hand raised. Would you like to speak?
Yes, I think considering the first year was really about evolving and learning about the board, the leadership and experience from Judge Jewell was imperative, and it was really nice to be able to have that leadership. And most boards, or some of them that I've been on, it's a 2-year term or longer. And I think that that's set in place for a reason, because we, continue to learn and, kind of understand the process from those that have more experience, like Judge Jewell. So I think that would be great for him to maintain as chair. And I know it's next on the agenda, but I think Debbie Strongin would be a great asset and be good for vice, because
Thank
of her
you.
dedication and all of her work she's done.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Thank you for your comments. Debbie Dodge, do you have any comments?
No, just what I said before about that. I'm happy to have Judge Jewell serve again. I think he did a fantastic job.
Okay. At this point, let's just do an individual roll call vote, and we'll see how the tally for who our next chair will be. Debbie Dodge,
I vote for Judge Jewell.
Diane Layden,
Judge Jewell.
Debbie Strongin,
Judge Jewell.
Michael Wismer, Judge Jewell, Judge Jewell,
Debbie Strongin.
Debbie Dosal,
Diane, Judge Jewell.
no, sorry, Judge Jewell. Well, Judge, I think you have won a second term as the SOAR chair. Congratulations and thank you. And I know we all realize that it takes a lot of effort to be the chair, and we'd like you to continue for the next year and lead us through our second year of existence. So with that, I'd like to move to the position of vice chair. Is there a nomination?
As Diane Layden indicated, I would certainly, if she has made that as her nomination, second Debbie Strongin for the position of vice chair.
We have what I consider an initial motion and a second for Debbie Strongin as the vice chair. Are there any other nominees for vice chair? Hearing none, does anyone wish to make any discussion or comments about the position of vice chair?
Yeah, I would move that we proceed to election, that nominations cease, and that one unanimous ballot be submitted for the name of Debbie Strongin in the position of vice chair.
Any further comments? Since we have one nominee, I'll just take, if you'll just raise your hand, and so I can see on the video if the vote, the motion is for Debbie Strongin as vice chair for the SOARB board for the next year. All those in favor, if you'll just raise your hand so I can see you. I see everyone.
I can't raise my hand.
Okay. All right. I would like the minutes to reflect a unanimous vote for Debbie Strongin for vice chair. And at this point, I've said more than I ever wanted to say in a meeting, so I'm going to return the chair and leadership over to Judge Jewell.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, colleagues. I accept the responsibility for the coming year, and I appreciate your endorsement, and I will make an effort to move us forward and to be inclusive. So please continue to be participatory and inclusive, and let's see if we can move this effort even further ahead. We'll move then to item 4, which is Sheriff's Office comment. Are there members of the Sheriff's Office with us?
And just to let you know, Under Sheriff Corrin did reach out to me saying that he may not be able to make it to this meeting because they were investigating an attempted murder on a police officer, helping the state with that.
Well, that's certainly understandable. In light of the fact that there aren't any members of the Sheriff's Office present, is there anything further on that agenda item? Hearing none, we'll move to public comment. Item 5 is public comment. Are there members of the public present? And no one signed up.
I didn't see any signups, but it does look like I have Elena on the line from the public. You're on
Elena?
mute. One second, she's on mute. I think she might be talking.
Yes, I'm not officially public yet. I didn't sign up for comments, but I did want to observe the meeting, and I have worked for the last 32 years with both Sheriff's APD and other police departments throughout the nation, and I'm especially interested in the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office. So that's why I'm here.
And thank you. I didn't catch your full name. Would you please indicate it again?
It's Elena Giacci, Giacci. And actually,
Well, I've certainly heard that name. I don't think I can see you very well,
Yeah.
but you are certainly welcomed by
Right,
this
we've been
board,
together.
and you needn't have signed up to give comment. So we appreciate you being here and welcome your comment as we move forward.
Thank you.
Anything further you wanted to say at this time?
No, I had wanted originally just to talk about the use of body cameras. I know it's new to the Sheriff's Office, and the protocols and the procedures that we have seen with difficulty with intimate partner violence, child sexual abuse, and sexual violence cases with the use of a body camera, that as well as the policies and protocols. I didn't get to see the site. I did read the report on cameras, so that's what I was interested as well.
Okay, and certainly that has been an item of discussion in this board in the past. So we keep an eye on the pulse of that. And if you have some information to bring to the fore, we'll certainly hear you on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I certainly remember you from my court days. So
Yes.
it's good.
Yeah. Working with juveniles was one of the best things that was one of my biggest learning lessons.
Are there other members of the public that are present who wish to be heard? Hearing none, we'll move to new business. Item 6A is recognition of the BCSO role in Tram rescue, and Diane Layden is mentioned as the presenter. Diane?
I I think it would be appropriate for this board to recognize the courage and skills of the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, particularly Under Sheriff Larry Corrin, who flew the helicopter in the rescue of 21 people overnight on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. If you read the articles, the first article I read was actually in the New York Times, but both articles from the Times, from the Albuquerque Journal, indicate the risk that was taken by all of those who participated in the rescue. And those of you who know about helicopters and landing one in the wind and the snow and the ice on a mountain ledge know that this was a request above the call of duty. Most of us don't risk our lives in our jobs. And I just think the board should recognize the courage and skills of the Bernalillo County Sheriff's personnel who participated in the rescue.
Okay, thank you, Diane. And I think towards that, at least the New York Times article and the Albuquerque Journal article were sent out to the board. Is there anything further with respect to Diane Layden's request for recognition in this rescue effort?
Debbie Strongin, I have just a comment that since Under Sheriff Corrin isn't here right now, would it be appropriate for us to draft a letter from our board that summarizes what Diane just said, so that the sheriff's office knows that we've given this recognition?
Sounds
My
good.
thought is that it would be very appropriate. In any further comment on that, or any other recommendations or comments on recognizing Under Sheriff Corrin and those that assisted in this rescue?
I would just like, I can't figure out how to raise my hand, sorry. This is
have
Debbie
found it.
Dodge. I would just like to say that, I mean, they did a great job. And since I'm Facebook friends with the sheriff's office, I mean, there's a lot of amazing rescues that they do. They just rescued some people that were stranded in the mountains and the snow, you know, hikers, that they really don't get recognition for. And so they're doing a lot out there for us, and the public doesn't even know it.
Well, that's well put. I think the laudatory comments have been well put. Might I assign Diane Layden? And I don't know if anybody would like to assist her in drafting something reflecting our commendation of Under Sheriff Corrin and the rescue effort. But if Diane Layden would, it looks like Floyd has said he would be happy to assist. If Diane Layden will take note of those who would like to assist and draft something, and perhaps it can even be presented to Under Sheriff Corrin if he's available at the next meeting.
This is Michael. I'd like to assist too. I think this is a very worthwhile effort on our part of the board.
I'll be in touch.
Okay. And thank you. You've been consistent about making sure we did that, Diane. And, you know, we certainly hear from the public and talk when there are bad, what we consider moments in the sheriff's office. So it's good that we congratulate them when they perform such a noteworthy public service. So thank you for doing that for us. There's nothing further on that.
Just Debbie Strongin, I'm just thinking, since Debbie Dodge mentioned the Facebook page, maybe whatever we end up sending as a letter, we could also post on that page. I don't know if it's possible to do that, but if it is, and somebody in this group knows how to do it, then that might be worthwhile as well.
I'm sure I could figure out how to do that.
Agreed. Agreed. Okay, anything else on that? Thank you. We'll move to item 6B, Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, CALEA. And Michael Wismer has been looking into that and is tasked with leading the
Thank you,
discussion.
Mr. Chairman. I was hoping that Under Sheriff Covington would be able to attend today's meeting, but I'm sure he is involved in the ongoing incident here in the East Mountains where the New Mexico State police officer has been shot. So, you know, my thoughts, personally, my thoughts and prayers are with that officer, and we hope he recovers as quickly as possible. In order to facilitate the discussion, I have asked and would like to introduce to the board the Los Alamos Police Chief, Dino Scambolone, who undertook CALEA certification in his department after about a year in his position as Chief of Police. He's been in that position for about a decade and has some, I thought it would be good. My idea was that it would be very good for the board to hear from a leader of a police organization who has gotten a T-shirt and essentially achieved CALEA certification and maintains it. Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office had CALEA certification. Covington was the certification manager. And he could speak to their experience, but he's not available right now. What I would like to ask is that we use this as a sort of learning session for the board, and that is, I would ask the Chief Scambolone to give an overview of the reasons why he sought this certification and his perception of whether it's been worthwhile over time. And then I would ask board members to please feel free to ask the chief any questions. I'm not taking a position on CALEA certification. Rather, I just think it would be helpful if the board understood the pros and cons of what this kind of certification can possibly bring to a department. So with that, I would like to introduce, and in the spirit of full disclosure, I must say that Chief Scambolone was a colleague of mine when I was at Los Alamos Lab as a security division leader. I worked with him on a number of issues, so he and I know each other pretty well, and he's been very helpful to me in informing me about the process. But anyway, with that, Chief Scambolone, can I ask for you to speak a little bit about your experience with the CALEA accreditation?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, board, thank you for having me. As Mike said, I'd like to just give a brief overview of accreditation and then what it means to me in this department, and then open it up for questions that you might have. If you go to CALEA's website, you're going to see 5 areas that they talk about that are potential benefits of accreditation. And those areas include increased community advocacy, support from government officials, stronger defense in civil lawsuits, reduced risk and liability exposure, and greater accountability in the agency. My original agency, where I grew up and became a police officer in Ohio, was accredited. And to be honest, as an officer, you know, and it's a common when Mike talks about, you know, benefits and potential obstacles, you know, buy-in throughout the organization is a challenge because a younger officer doesn't see the big picture, and really they just view it as I have to do certain reports that I didn't have to do before and things. But as a manager, I really wouldn't want to be a manager of an agency that wasn't accredited. It just provides a proven management system, and so that's why when I got here, I looked to get us accredited, and it's not only a proven management system with respect to policy. You know, there's 424 standards. And your policy is designed to meet and exceed those standards. But there's training standards, benefits. There's clearly defined limits of authority. There's analysis that's required that supports decision-making and resource allocation, and in partnership with the community. And I think it enhances the accountability, both internally and externally to the organization. It enhances transparency. And because you are, in order to get accredited and then to maintain accreditation, there are reviews, and how they do it now is you have what's called an on-site every 4 years. Now with COVID, they actually changed that to a virtual, but that's really an in-depth look. They come to your department, they evaluate your personnel, your facility, your equipment, obviously your policies. Every quarter, every year, they actually do a virtual assessment of your policies. So we've had our initial accreditation, and then we've had 3 annual virtual inspections, and then we were just reaccredited in November with an on-site. And in each of those, we've maintained 100% compliance to all the standards, which is actually pretty rare. A lot of that has to do with the accreditation manager that I have. He's exceptional. And any agency that would want to pursue accreditation, I would recommend that they find somebody that's committed and very detail oriented. But it's more than that. It's our community support. It's our ability as an organization to recognize the value of achieving a high level of customer service and a high level of standard, meeting those standards. And it's the people here and their professionalism and everything that goes into the day-to-day work that we do in service to the community. That I get, like I'm sure most chiefs and sheriffs, I get a lot of IPRA requests regarding our policies, a lot of special interest groups and a lot of defense attorneys. And, I don't really hear back from them. And, it's anecdotal, but I'd like to think that what happens is they review and they see that our policies are they're up to date. They meet the standards as set forth by CALEA, and they, they take into account things that are important to people, and ensuring that we're doing things the right way. And at the end of the day, like I say, it's an external review of our processes. It's not us saying that we're simply meeting the standards. It's a review panel, and at the end of the day, there's always citizen feedback that the panel gets, and we show evidence of our partnerships and collaborations within the community. Like I say, as a manager, as a chief, I really wouldn't want to be in a department that wasn't accredited for all those reasons. Yes, Los Alamos is a unique community, but it's certainly transferable to any organization of any size. There are very few accredited agencies in New Mexico. And, I think from a professional perspective, I would certainly like to see more agencies become CALEA certified. That's a basic overview, and I would stand for any questions that you have.
Please feel free to ask the chief any questions. This is a good opportunity because he's been involved in this for a number of years.
Debbie Strongin has a hand up. Debbie?
Thank you very much for that overview. Your views are very interesting to me on that. I'm curious to know, is the panel that evaluates the law enforcement agency made up of law enforcement experts, or how is that made up?
So yes, typically it's either currently serving officers or retired, and they review, like I say, once a year. They review 25% of our policies virtually, and then every 4 years on site. And then what they do is they develop a report, and then that report is actually sent to the board, and then the board actually reviews that and determines whether an agency meets the standards and is accredited or reaccredited. I'm not sure if the board at large, I would think that it's probably a mix of individuals, but I don't know the answer to that.
Thank you.
Chief, this is Tommy Jewell. I just wondered, have you been a part of an accreditation visit team? Have you been on that side of accreditation?
No, sir, I haven't. There's a process, and I've just never went through the process. Now my accreditation manager just signed up to be able to do that, and so he will be assisting other agencies in that respect. And along those lines, I would say, if there's any agency across the state or within our region, quite frankly, we would be happy to assist them in getting started. It can be very resource intensive, really taking a look at all your policies and revising them to meet standards. And we would be happy to assist any agency in those efforts.
Chief, this is Mike again. Could you talk to us about how you started this, and was there resistance within the rank and file of your department, and what you may have had to do to overcome if it did exist?
Well, again, I came from an accredited agency, and I was comfortable and familiar with it. And I knew that's the direction that I wanted to go. Los Alamos at the time that I got here actually had state level certification, but upon reviewing that model, it wasn't as robust as what I was used to. And so I began the effort to transition to CALEA, and it took us probably 3 years to get ready. And, one of the most difficult things in any organization is, effective communication, particularly about larger goals and objectives of the organization and the vision. You try to do that as chief, and, there's always some gaps in understanding or buy-in. Typical to the change management process and how that vision is communicated and then carried out. Again, we have very committed and professional people. I'm not sure that everybody from top to bottom understands the true significance of being accredited. To me, just, I liken it to when you're looking at college, sending your children to a college, you want to look at many people want to look at, you know, colleges and universities that are accredited, or, you know, if you're going to have heart surgery, you might be looking at, you know, accredited hospital organizations. And why should law enforcement be any different? And I think it's been well received in the community for sure. I think there's an expectation here that we would consistently demonstrate, you know, commitment to recognize standards in the profession. But yeah, that's a challenge internally, because they just don't understand the, you know, the bigger picture, and really that falls at my feet. But you know, I think there's a sense of pride in being able to achieve this. There's under 1,000 accredited agencies in the whole United States, so you stand out in terms of your ability to meet those standards, and you know, that translates to a high level of customer service in the community. So that's an ongoing challenge, Mike. You know, just constantly reaffirming that commitment and trying to explain the values, and yeah, ongoing, but we got there. We got there as an organization.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, would our member of the public has raised her hand. Would it be okay with you if Elena Giacchi were able to ask a question of the chief?
Certainly.
So I have a couple of questions, and you answered one about whether or not the officers might resist something like this. It's change, so change happens slowly. But what would you say was the biggest criticism from community, or was there? And how did it address underserved communities in the larger picture of being able to respond and transparent in those communities? And then the final question would be, excuse me, you had mentioned about a training academy. Would this forego then the academy that they already attend, or would it be an additional thing? And what is the entire cost for something like that? Thank you.
Yeah, I think from the officer's perspective, and this, I can use my own experience, you know, particularly when you first transition to CALEA, now as an officer, you have to, for example, write a report a certain way to reflect certain standards. So for example, this just sticks in my head, but when you handcuff somebody, there's a feature on the handcuffs that's called a double lock, and it's a button you push, and what that does is it keeps the handcuffs from tightening more. And you know, we want that in the report, that the handcuffs were double locked, for example. And there are many other examples. So as an officer, when you've been writing a report a certain way for years, and now you have to include certain language, yeah, that's not a big deal really, but it's that issue, and it's others that basically the common response at that level is, well, now I have to do all of these things that I didn't have to do before. And again, they're not necessarily appreciating the bigger picture, but it's, you know, it's not hard to gain that level of compliance either. You know, we're not asking them to do things that, you know, they haven't been trained to do, or it's just more of a documentation. All the proofs that we meet that we provide to show compliance with standards, you know, they're written. It's written documentation, or it's photographs, or it's video, or it's we have to provide something to show that we're meeting that standard. So a lot of that is documented in reports, for example. In terms of underserved populations, I would just say that, and again, we're unique here in Los Alamos, not that we don't have underserved populations, but it's a unique community versus others in New Mexico. But certainly we like to collaborate and partner with multiple agencies, whether that's social services, the schools, here in Los Alamos, obviously the National Laboratory. So we regularly engage with our partners on a number of different issues. But for example, our homeless situation just isn't what it is in other areas of the state. That doesn't mean we turn a blind eye to it. It just means we don't have to devote as many resources to certain social issues as other areas, but we're always willing to do our part and to be a good community partner where we can. In terms of training, what I meant was that because accreditation provides the CEO a management platform, it includes things like training, certain training standards. That doesn't replace the academy. It just ensures that we are meeting internal expectations regarding certain training elements. Now, the state itself has ongoing mandatory training in several areas, such as mental health, domestic violence, obviously our firearms qualifications and such. But accreditation just requires certain areas to ensure that we're meeting those standards. Accreditation tells you have to have a pursuit policy, and they'll give you examples so that you can develop a policy that it fits your jurisdiction. But it doesn't tell you, how do I say this? It doesn't say, here's the policy and it's a one size fits all and everybody has to do this. It just tells you have to have a pursuit policy. And in that policy, it's going to have some level of standardization in terms of, when to conduct a pursuit, when to stop a pursuit analysis after each pursuit is completed. And in that analysis, was there things we could have done better? Are there training needs? Are there equipment needs? A lot of analysis goes into the accreditation process. But yeah, it doesn't replace the state mandated training either in the academy level or the ongoing requirements. As far as cost, it's based on the number of officers in the office or department. And there's a couple different fees. There's an initial fee. I think even over 1,000 agencies with over 1,000, I don't think that fee exceeds $20,000. And then like for us, for example, it's around 10, I believe, for the initial. And then yearly, it's also based on population of your officers. For us, it's about 5,000 a year. And so for us, it was an initial 10,000, 5,000 a year, excuse me. And then if there is an on-site, there's some additional cost associated with that in terms of bringing the assessors here and which was minimal. And again, it was virtual this year, so we didn't even have that. So cost is brought up a lot, but I really don't think, well, and again, we're in a situation where financially we're not as, we're in a good position financially. So I shouldn't make a broad statement. Some agencies, you know, that's tough. And I get that because I came from one, but it's not an exorbitant amount, I'll put it that way.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for the chief? Hearing none, I'd like-
Debbie Strongin has a hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Debbie.
I'm just curious to know if a finding is made by an assessment board that procedures weren't followed or weren't fully followed. Is that feedback given just to the agency, or is that a publicly available critique?
No, it would be public. What happens is during the time of your assessment, so even the virtual assessments, it's a multi-day process. Let's say it's 5 days. If they identify gaps or things that could be enhanced or improved, sometimes it's a finding and sometimes it's a suggestion. In other words, a suggestion would be, well, you're meeting the standard, but we suggest that, you know, you could alter this, you could enhance your service capacity by making this change. And then it's up to the organization whether they want to make that change or not. If it's a finding, you have through that week to fix it. And a lot of those would be like, okay, the proof you showed us for this standard didn't quite get there. It wasn't directly related to the standard. You know, we want to see something different. And if you can produce that, and by that, I don't mean, you know, make it up out of thin air. You have to show that you actually did it and prove somehow that you did it. But if you can provide that during that week, then the finding goes away. But ultimately, there's the report that the assessors do, which is provided to the board, who ultimately makes the decision on accreditation or reaccreditation. Yeah, that's a public document.
Okay, thank you. It just occurs to me that in itself could be a disincentive. I mean, from my lawyer's point of view, you know, if you say you're going to adhere to a standard and then you don't, it makes you more vulnerable and more liable. And so I'm just curious whether that's a concern that you've had about this kind of public assessment.
Well, again, I think a couple of things along that line. Again, although we've met 100% compliance in every assessment we've had, that's not typical. It's more typical to have findings, and that I think it could mean, I think you could have some exposure there depending on what the standard was and what the finding was. For example, if your use of force analysis, you didn't do one, there's some exposure there. If you didn't have a process for reviewing use of force, if you didn't analyze your use of force. Now, most agencies, whether they're accredited or not, I would assume have some level of review and should. And if you're not doing that, then yeah, there's some exposure there. But I use that as a pretty extreme example because I think most agencies are going to do that. And most of your findings are not going to be so extreme. They're going to be, you know, I'm just trying to think of a small one. So they inspect they inspect your fire extinguishers to make sure that they're have been inspected as they should be, for example. So if we had a finding that we weren't doing that, yeah, that's something that we'll ensure that we do in the future, but is it gonna create a great deal of exposure so long as we haven't had a fire during that time? You know, probably not. And then lastly, I would just say, you know, we're not perfect, and, you know, we're human, and organizations make mistakes, and you have to be accountable to that. And that's part of the transparency. If you're doing things in an egregious manner, either omitting something you should be doing, or you have a policy and you're not adhering to it, then those are problems. Does it offer exposure? Yeah, I think in some cases it could, but overall, I think as an accredited agency, you actually reduce those liabilities, because you're meeting standard, you know, you're meeting upwards of 424 standards.
Hey,
And-
thank you. And I would just comment that I think your attitude and your approach to this are really commendable. So thank you.
Agreed. Michael, I think we need to find a way to wrap this up. Certainly, the chief has a lot of information, and we're grateful to be in the audience to give consideration to it, and maybe there's a way that he can take additional questions from us, but our time is going to be limited currently. So how do you want to proceed?
Anyone can email me with additional questions, and I'll liaise with the chief. And I'd like to sum up by thanking the chief for his time and telling him lunch is on me the next time I'm in Los Alamos. So we're all good. And thank you, Chief, and thank you, Chair Jewell, for allowing us to have this conversation.
Chief, go ahead if you have a final comment there. We sure appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you again for the opportunity to talk about accreditation. And again, if this is a direction that you want to go in, or you at least want to have some additional conversation in, we would be happy to support.
Thank you. And thank you, Michael. We have known for some amount of time that this was going to be a worthwhile area for us to have knowledge in. I think as Debbie Strongin was suggesting, you know, a lot of these standards would be aspirational. Certainly coming in, I'm sure that the chief would agree, perfection is not expected, even though apparently they've been able to ascribe and meet all the standards. Perfection, I'm sure, doesn't happen instantly. So I think we get that. We'll, though, move on and try to complete our meeting here. The next item is 6C, Board Discussion of SOARB Annual Report submitted to the County Commission. Item C1 is board discussion about adding more members in C2. And I'm not sure what we had in mind here, but discussion about SOARB inputs and outputs. Let me just start by saying the annual report, and certainly I credit Debbie Strongin for her compilation, wording and editing of that report, was presented in writing prior to and presented by me at the January 11 County Commission meeting. My impression is that it was well received. I certainly didn't in that meeting attempt to read the report to the commissioners, but they seemed to have a grasp of it. I think they were astonished that we had never actually met face to face as a board. but were able to achieve what was represented in that report. And so I was pleased with that presentation. One of the things that I was charged with in that presentation is making sure that they were aware that we were down members and urging them to appoint more members to fill the vacant seats. I don't think we have any appointments yet, but that message I believe was heard. Debbie Strongin, I know I got to see on my screen and was able to allow her to make comment in the time that I had. I'm sure there were others of you that were at that meeting and some, I apologize, didn't know that they could attend that meeting. So I certainly want to hear comments from those people, Debbie Strongin and others who were at that meeting as well as that report was presented. So Debbie Strongin, are there additional comments that you have about the report, the presentation, and otherwise?
Yeah, I was impressed that it really did seem that the commissioners had read the report, and the questions and points that they brought up indicated that. So I think that was good. And again, I think you very clearly stated the case that we need more members appointed to this board. So.
Diane Layden has a hand up.
I was also present at that meeting, and I thought the presentation went beautifully, as well as the call for more members on the board.
Anyone else on the report? Well, thank you, colleagues. With respect to adding more board members, and Diane Dosal, I have your name there. Are you still on, or did you have to get off?
I'm here.
Were there further comments that you had about that?
The only thing I would add is that it is known again through some sort of announcement, like it was initially, that we are in need of board members, and the process of if someone is interested, who they need to contact, which is typically their local representative. So, and to add that there are new commissioners now, so it would be nice that the public would know how they can submit an interest.
Right, thank you, Diane. And as I'm looking at the sheet, I think the 3 vacancies are in districts 1, 2, and 4. So I think all the at-large positions on this board are filled, and it is those 3 commission district appointments that are needed. Am I correct in that, Crystal? Yeah, I see it here, 1, 2, and 4.
Yes, sorry, I was on mute.
That's all right. And so I don't know if the board would want a further action as a board going to the commission or to those 3 county commissioners directly, but we can certainly give consideration to that. In addition to what Diane is saying, and I know Floyd is working on new ways of garnering public input, and so that might also be a subject that we address to the public, how to participate as a board member. Anyone else on that?
Okay. Does it need to be narrowed to those districts? What if someone from a district that's already being represented wants to join the board? I just don't want it to be too narrowed down, but I understand if it just is for those open districts.
Yeah,
And this
and
was
I'll
Diane's
go
fault.
back and look at the legislation that created us, but I believe it is specific to those positions. I don't recall how the at-large members are selected, but I know that those commissioners from those districts have the pick, have the appointment in their specific districts. So, and Crystal, you help me with this. What were we thinking when we included this item of inputs and outputs?
Okay, so for that one, it was based off of the minutes. I kind of just shortened what you were saying, but it was in regards to you asking if the board members were getting what they want out of the board and if they were able to put in what they wanted to into the board. It was, you had mentioned that at the end of the last meeting.
Yeah, thank you. So it was in the nature of an evaluation about whether or not this process was yielding what board members and others had expected. I think there's a larger conversation to be had about what direction this ship ought to be headed. And in addition to looking forward, certainly evaluating what we've done and certainly following up on anything that needs to be completed with respect to the work that we've already undertaken. So if there are comments in that regard, please make them now, colleagues. I think in my presentation to the County Commission, I tried to make note of the fact that it is probably a multi-year process for us to be fully functional. And so we've got a year under our belt. I think particularly the subject that Mr. Wismer has brought to us about accreditation, whether through CALEA, I know we'll probably have the opportunity to hear the Sheriff's Office. Those are good things in addition to the ad hoc items that come to us. The broad picture and knowing that there's a guidepost, I think is quite important. I think we can probably move on to other subjects. I know as we complete item 6, there's board discussion of requests made to BCSO personnel, and I have Dosal and Strongin listed as presenters there. Was there something, Debbie and Diane, that you all wanted to cover in that item?
This is Debbie. I think this was really Diane's item, but
Okay.
I think we were just looking for when we're asking or inquiring about certain topics that we might ask a representative from that division if they could speak more to that topic. So for instance, if we had something to the agenda about use of force or body worn cameras or anything along those lines, if we could also have someone from that unit or division present at the meeting, so that way we could ask a couple of questions, or maybe they could introduce their unit to us in, a matter of a couple of minutes, bearing time in mind. I think that's what we were looking for when we made that request. Just so, that way we might have a subject matter expert there.
Okay. And I see Elena Giacchi has a hand up. Was there something else that you wanted to say, Elena, or ask?
No, I was just letting everybody know I have to leave. I apologize. I have another Zoom meeting. But thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this. You guys are doing great work. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your participation and encouragement, and please come to our next meetings.
Great, thank you.
Sure. And back to your point, Diana, I think basically we've been asking the undersheriffs in attendance, you know, who we might get when we needed some subject matter expertise. Is there a different way of going about that? I know we had, for instance, the captain over the SOPs, and I think we achieved.
Yeah, I don't know who that would lie on as far as reaching out once we have an agenda set. And then we have like a topic in mind. I don't know who that would fall on to reach out to that representative from that division or unit, but giving them advance notice to appear to the next meeting, you know, or to whatever meeting that might pertain to give them the heads up that we need a subject matter expert or someone from that division to show up to the meeting and just kind of introduce their unit to us, or just be there so that we could ask questions of, because I certainly don't know that the chain of command or their organizational chart or anything like that, but I'm not sure if Crystal has a way of reaching out to maybe even the undersheriff and asking who is over this unit, you know, can we have this person attend the next meeting because we're going to be talking about use of force, or what does the gang unit do, or anything like that.
And I'm sorry, my internet connection, so I lost you guys for a little bit. I caught the tail end. What I can do is, because I don't know their chain of organization either on who to contact, but what I could send out is an email to Undersheriff Corin in Covington and say, these are the topics. If you could include a SME from that area, if they're available, I can request that when I send them the information.
Yeah, and then if we need to get more formal, certainly a letter from the chair asking that the person responsible for the discrete area be present as our meeting is possible too. And so, you know, I don't know that we've addressed that formally. We've had the luxury over most of our meetings of having the undersheriffs with us to say, oh yeah, that person in the department handles that. And so their absence today kind of points out, you know, how good that is for us. And I don't know if you know, well, certainly we don't have the power to require that they be at these meetings. And when something as is afoot, the shooting of a police officer happens, and that certainly seems to take priority over us. So I'm not criticizing that they're not here today, but certainly understanding that when they are here, it allows us to at least dive a little deeper into who has responsibility for what. So, you know, in addition, I don't know, Crystal, if there is an organizational chart that might give us our own insight, but you might ask for that as well.
I'm sure there is. It's just a matter of getting it.
Okay. Anything else on that though? Very good. Suggestions for, I'm sorry, is there something else? Suggestions for discussion at the next board meeting. Floyd Vasquez has a hand up. Floyd. You're muted.
You're muted.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I just wanted to on the one hand, say that I am continuing to seek alternatives to get the word out and do more public outreach. And one thing that we might do, and that with your approval, I can look into and let you know what I find out next time. And that is to go to ask what it would take to, in addition to having these meetings be available on Zoom for those who sign up, but the possibility of having it stream live on YouTube, And then we could use those tapes as outreach material as well. They would be available on demand so that people, if they're looking for what happens at these meetings, here's the archive of on-demand meetings. So if that's and also I could look into the possibility of doing a news release informing the public in these districts that new members are needed for these districts, and with, as Diane suggested, the method that they might express their interest to their respective commissioner. And I can look into those and report on them next time if that is of interest to the chair and the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Floyd. It's certainly of interest to the chair, and if others have comment on that, I'll hear them. So please pursue those avenues.
Will do. Thank you.
You know, I think it was Debbie Strongin, and I realized that this isn't on the agenda. And as I said, I was hoping Daniel would be here as political season is on us again. I think the question came up about whether we were limited in our participation, and I think that's an important question. And I think that probably needs to be on the agenda for discussion. My little simple understanding of our constitutional rights does indicate to me that while you're not limited constitutionally in your ability to participate in the political process, be mindful of the fact that we as individuals are not empowered to speak on behalf of this board in endorsing a candidate or otherwise, whether we're aiming at a candidate, our comments can be perceived as comments from this board. So I think we just need to take care that we divide our responsibilities to this board from our individual political interests as this political season ramps up. I know there are, I've seen literature from several sheriff's candidates at this point. So that's going to come on us. We'll get hopefully more official advice from legal. I'm hoping Daniel will do something with that. Am I correct? Debbie, was that your question, Debbie Strongin?
Yes,
Go ahead.
that was my question, and Daniel did respond that he was going to look into it and he'd have an answer for us today, but he's obviously been called away, to something else, but I'm sure that he'll be able to provide that answer the next time we meet.
Okay, well, good. I think until we meet though, I think you have to be circumspect in making sure that you're not saying or doing anything that would indicate that your opinion is the opinion of the SOARB. I think you can go ahead and be political as you desire. Just make sure you make that distinction.
And then, sorry, Mr. Chair, but I don't know if you're moving to the next item about the announcement of the next board meeting.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
I was just informed that I have an event I have to go to that day. So I don't know if we want to move it to a different date or meet in April.
Well, I think it's important that we keep record of our meetings. And so, yeah, we'll want you to be able to give notice and keep minutes and do the other things that you so skillfully do for us. And so give me some dates to consider.
Let me pull up my calendar right now.
So the next Friday would be the 18th. The Friday prior, the 4th.
Yeah, so I'm available the 18th and the 4th. Either one would work. The only thing with the 4th though is it's a quick turnaround time, so you'll get that meeting invite on the 25th, which I don't think will be a problem now that I got my laptop all taken care of.
Yeah, and the last Friday in March would be the 25th. Is there any preference, board members?
I think Diane Dosal has her hand up.
Oh, Diane?
Sorry, that was up for, we had gone to 8 right away, but I think we did talk a while back if we were going to revisit, if we were going to continue Fridays and if that time frame was going to be good anyway. So I don't know if everyone was still good with Fridays and the time frame. But I just know that that was mentioned in the past. And then I had a quick side for number 7.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you, you might want to open it up for consideration of different dates other than Friday dates. And you have some suggestions for discussion. So Diane, relative to suggestions for discussion, what is it that you wanted to say?
So I don't know if anybody else is totally fine with meeting at Fridays at 11 still. I just know that we had talked about that in the past, and if anybody wanted to take that opportunity to revisit that time frame. Does anybody? Or are we still good with that Fridays at 11?
This is
Debbie
Debbie Strongin. My only comment, I mean, I'm fine with pretty much any time, but I'm wondering if what we're seeking is public participation, whether some other time or some other day might work better for people who are, at work, in school, whatever. I don't know what day might be better or what time might be better, but it just occurred to me that
And I'm not clear. Diane, are you suggesting that we take this as an agenda item and try to do some work to determine what might be a better day? And in that, Crystal, are you saying that there will be continual conflicts with you helping us on Fridays at this time?
No, Fridays are fine at this time for me and my schedule. It's just with one of the projects, I won't be able to make the March 11th meeting.
Okay.
I apologize, Chair. I wasn't trying to make anything, difficult or burdensome. I just know that we did talk about that in the past, and now that we have, since that conversation, we have Diane Layden, and then we've lost a board member, and we're going to obtain new members. I just didn't know if we wanted to revisit the time frame, and I think that Debbie Strongin brings in a good point that we were looking at participation initially when we talked about that. Making it, maybe revisiting the time frame, just because maybe that is a matter of participation from the community, but I don't know how we gauge that. So that was my only remark.
Okay, why don't we do this? Let's adopt, and we'll put it off a bit, March 25th at this time for the next meeting. Let's make that an agenda item. And Diane, I appreciate you being mindful of it. Would you, if you might, kind of poll us and see if there's a better date and time? I tend to like the consistency, certainly as I'm
not sure if it's me. Did Judge Jewell freeze?
yes.
I lost him too.
I lost him too.
Okay.
Well, if you don't mind, would it be okay if I think I might send an email to everyone individually to see if they have any alternate times or suggestions, and then I'll come up with a better consensus or idea then.
I think Judge Jewell, I don't know if you came back, you were frozen for us. Diane Dosal just recommended that she could get individual input emailed to her, and then we can discuss it at the next meeting. I can put that in the minutes for an agenda item. I'm not sure if he can hear us or not.
Yeah.
But Debbie Strongin, since you're vice chair, did you want me to go ahead and do that?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Didn't realize I'd be having to take over a meeting so quickly.
I'd like to suggest that we agree with Judge Jewell's suggestion for the 25th for the next meeting, if that's okay with our vice chair.
Yes, I second that.
Okay, so I have March 25th at 11.
Okay. It looks like
If I
Judge
may,
Jewell may.
Did I
could
come
I
back?
make
I think we have you back, Judge Jewell.
Oh, okay. I was trying to dial on the phone. I'm technology challenged, and apparently I lost my internet connection. So before that happens again, I concur. I think Debbie Strongin handled that ably. So the next meeting will be on the 25th, and we'll have as an agenda item the potential for moving our meetings to a different date and time. Until then, I think what I was saying is it certainly helps me to have consistency and say that a meeting is on the second Friday of the month, or whenever it's going to be. As long as we have a consistent time, I'm satisfied, and certainly have flexibility in my schedule. Diane, Dosal?
Yes, sorry. We had jumped to 8. I just wanted to add something on 7 real quick. I was wondering what the board thought about us potentially asking for a representative that, or a supervisor that is somehow involved with the multi-agency task force process, because I know that was still kind of left up in the air with like some things we may or may not know about that unit, and it just is something that seemed kind of, I don't know, we didn't have full answers to, and it was just one of those topics when Debbie was writing the annual report, and I didn't know if anybody thought that might be a good idea, since there were still a lot of questions out there for our next meeting.
Debbie Strongin, I think it's a good idea. I would second that.
I think that's fine. Crystal, let's put that on agenda. That's representative of multi-agency task force. And perhaps we ought to, as we did with the Los Alamos chief, get somebody from the outside that isn't a part of multi-agency and with respect to internal shoots has another agency come in. Some of our smaller counties, I believe, have that circumstance. But I think that's probably a good start, to start with somebody in the multi-agency task force. So we'll put that on.
And I'm sorry, because my internet is cutting out as well. Was that in regards to, were you saying that the agenda item should be to discuss representatives of the multi-agency task force, or what was that? Because I missed the beginning part of that.
And Diane, you can speak to that, but my understanding is that in any shooting, any police shooting, there's a multi-agency task force that is led by the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office. And there were feelings that at least the appearance of that created a problem. And so I think we're interested in hearing specifically from somebody who is assigned to that multi-agency task force, because I think we were also told that it is impractical for another agency to be taking the lead. So I hope that speaks
Yeah.
to the.
Okay, so do you want me to put as the agenda item, deputy involved shootings, or hearing any input from BCSO on deputy involved shootings, something around there?
Yeah, multi-agency task force, I think specifically, yes.
Okay.
Deputy involved shootings, involvement of multi-agency task force. And I think, and Diane, please go ahead if you had something else in mind on that.
Yeah, I think usually it's an individual from the homicide unit or violent crimes unit that gets the call, and then it's formulated that the multi-agency task force begins. But it would be nice to have a representative from BCSO to start that discussion, and if we needed to bring an outside representative, then we could do that. But I really think it would be beneficial to hear what BCSO does when there's an officer involved shooting and what those steps are from an actual detective or supervisor of that unit. Because multi-agency task force comes out of not full-time positions, but like collateral duties from either violent crimes or homicide unit. So it would just be nice to have a representative from Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department, either a detective or the supervisor of violent crimes or homicide, to come in and just give a quick 5-minute presentation on what that is, what that entails.
Okay. Can you arrange that for us, Crystal? Is that clear enough?
Yeah, I can put a request into the undersheriffs stating that that's what the board would like. Now,
Okay.
I mean, I can't force them to have a person attend though.
You can't force them, why not?
Nope. So, I mean, because they may, I'm sure they're probably super, super busy, but
I'm being facetious. I don't think any of us is in the position of being able to force anybody to do anything. All we can do is ask questions. We don't even have subpoena power. So if you will please make that request to the undersheriffs, or otherwise, at least we can start the conversation. And I hear Diane as wanting us to understand what all that involves. And so given the position that of, I guess, thinking that something may be amiss with the appearance of that, they may be anxious to explain it to us anyway. Debbie Strongin, did you have something else?
I just had another possible topic for an expert explanation from the sheriff's office. I know that Elena Giacchi had emailed me a whole series of questions about specific procedures having to do with body-worn cameras, and I had suggested to her that she attend the meeting and pose those questions. And so maybe, I don't know if we have time in the next meeting to address those questions, but is it possible that we, if I reach out to her and get her to send in a written list of questions, that we can notify the sheriff's office that those questions will come up, so that they're not just, suddenly hit with a bunch of specific questions, and that they may or may not be prepared to answer.
And I'm not clear. Are you wanting us to have a discussion of the questions? Are you wanting to facilitate getting those questions to the sheriff's office for answer?
I'd like to facilitate getting those questions to the sheriff's office, and then, I guess if Elena wanted more explanation, or she could let us know, or possibly those questions could be answered by the sheriff's office at our next meeting. So possibly we could have an agenda item just to address her questions concerning body worn cameras.
Well, let's put it on the agenda. My internet is telling me that we need to adjourn, apparently.
Okay.
It keeps going in and out. But we'll put that on the agenda, and if it needs fleshing out. And I think if you want to get those questions to Crystal, we can certainly facilitate this board knowing what the questions are, in addition to the appropriate sheriff's representatives knowing what those questions are.
Okay, I will do that.
All right. Anything else?
It's Debbie Strongin. I just didn't have a chance to say this earlier, but thank you everyone for your votes. I appreciate it.
Likewise, I look forward to your leadership, Debbie, and I appreciate the endorsement of leadership by this board. I don't take it lightly, but I think we all, as the internet is demonstrating to us, need to be ready to take leadership. And my experience is that we do. Michael Wismer, I asked him something, he steps right up and he's ready, and I appreciate that. Diane Dosal and Diane Layden, I just appreciate each and every one of you for the effort that has been taken and for your willingness to serve in this way. So Happy New Year. I look forward to our next meeting on the 25th of March with a robust agenda. Have a good day.
Thank you. You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.